The story began with a girl who was insecure about herself. She never dared to confess her feelings to the boy she liked because she didn't think she was pretty enough. But on the very day she graduated from college, the boy kissed her completely out of the blue. Caught off guard by his sudden closeness, Emma turned crimson with embarrassment and fled into the bathroom. When she finally pulled herself together and walked back out, the boy was already getting ready to leave. It turned out that her reaction had made him think she was rejecting him. And because she was still so insecure, she couldn't bring herself to say what she truly felt. After an awkward attempt to clear the air, they made a pact to just be friends for life. To protect that pure friendship, they agreed to meet every year on July 15th, no matter where they were in the world. That night, they fell asleep in each other's arms, and nothing happened. July 15th, 1989, was their first reunion after graduation. By then, Emma was full of hope for the future, firmly believing that one day she would become a great writer. But reality turned out nothing like she had imagined. To make a living in the city, she took a job as a waitress. She had once dreamed of changing the world through her writing, but instead she found herself being reshaped by the world around her. Dealing with picky customers and endless shifts, her enthusiasm and patience slowly wore thin. Every time she had a rough day, she would always call Dex first thing. But more often than not, before she could even get the words out, all she heard on the other end was a busy signal. Dex, on the other hand, had used his looks and family background to become the most popular host on television. Girls of all kinds flocked to him. Even on July 15th, the day he was supposed to meet Emma, he could easily pick up some random girl he had just met. Emma felt a bitter sting in her heart, but she pretended not to care, because after all, they were just friends. As another year slipped by, Emma's life remained largely uneventful. She did the same work day in and day out, living a life that felt already written. The girl who once had so many dreams seemed to be drifting further and further away from herself. But Dex saw things differently to help her find that lost spark again. He suggested that the next time they met, he would take her on a trip and show her the wider world. Before she knew it, the summer of 1992 arrived. Maybe she was afraid their relationship would spiral out of control. Or maybe she just knew Dex's flirtatious nature too well. But before they left, Emma set down 3 strict rules for the trip. No sharing a hotel room, no deliberate flirting, and swimwear must be modest at all times. It looked like she was trying to keep Dex in check. But in reality, the one who really needed restraint was Emma herself. She was terrified that if that thin line between them got crossed, their relationship would fall apart for good. Because to her, having Dex in her life as a steady, lasting presence meant far more than any brief moment of passion. But in the end, feelings are no match for a romantic sunset and a few drinks, and the emotions Emma had held back for years finally broke through. Dex, however, instinctively looked away. He wasn't ready to give up his wild, carefree life just yet. And just like that, it was 1993. By now, Dex had become the hottest TV host in all of Britain. Maybe success came too easily for him, because he started spending his nights lost in the glamour of booze and parties. And whenever the alcohol hit, he would find himself dialing Emma's number, rambling on about who knows what. It was almost as if that was the only way he could hold on to something real amid all the noise. But years of that indulgent lifestyle finally caught up with him. His health started to decline, not only requiring constant medication, but his mental and physical energy began to fade fast too. Looking at Dex in that wasted state, his mother's eyes held a disappointment she couldn't put into words. The son who had once been so full of life was now losing himself in a haze of excess. Even his usually quiet father couldn't hold back his anger anymore. In his eyes, Dex's downfall was selfish, ungrateful, and nothing short of cowardice. Dex called Emma, hoping for some kind of redemption. But that day she didn't pick up, because Emma had decided to give a guy named Ian a chance. A plain-looking, even somewhat stiff stage actor who was just as ordinary as she was. Ian didn't have Dex's charm or wit, but he was genuine and reliable. With Ian, Emma finally experienced what it felt like to be safe and secure. Soon enough, July 15th, 1995 rolled around. By then, Emma had become a gentle and refined literature teacher. Her life with Ian wasn't exactly thrilling, but like countless ordinary couples, they lived a quiet, stable existence. Dex's life, however, was a shadow of its former glory. Not only had his show ratings plummeted, but he was even labeled the worst TV host around. The wave of criticism and mockery shattered the image he had once been so proud of. Meanwhile, Emma's students won first place at the national drama competition. The girl who had once felt so overlooked was finally having her moment in the sun. And just like that, the tables had turned. This time, it was Dex who poured his heart out to Emma. On the phone, he unloaded all his frustrations and bitterness about his miserable life. He missed her more than anything, missed the voice that always had a way of calming him down. But with both of them buried in work, they ended up missing their reunion that year. Still, Emma never missed a single episode of his show. Before long, July 15th, 1996 arrived. By now, Emma had commitments to her family, so when Dex asked to see her again, she immediately told Ian about it. Ian wasn't exactly thrilled, but trusting Emma, he chose to be understanding and let it go. On the day they met, both of them tried hard to pretend they were doing great. But when they saw that each other's lives no longer had room for them, all that jealousy and resentment ended up coming out as sharp, sarcastic jokes. After that meeting, they completely lost touch, and that silence lasted a full 4 years. Over those 4 years, Emma slowly became the person she had always hoped to be. Not only did she learn how to swim, but she also picked up her long-abandoned dream of writing. Her earnings went from next to nothing to a steady, comfortable income. Before she knew it, she had become the main breadwinner in her household. But her love for Dex never faded, and Ian could see that quiet obsession lingering in her year after year. Then one day, Ian came across the love poems Emma had written for Dex back in college, and all the emotions he had bottled up finally came crashing down. After a bitter argument, they calmly decided to end things and put an end to their compromise of a relationship. Dex, on the other hand, had become a man left behind by the times. To keep up appearances and maintain his lifestyle, he set his sights on Sylvie, a woman from a well-off family. Then came the summer of 2000, when Dex was invited to an old classmate's wedding. That was where he crossed paths with Emma again. By then, Emma had shed all her youthful shyness and insecurity and carried herself with a confidence shaped by years of experience. But when Emma caught sight of Dex being affectionate with Sylvie, a part of her still quietly crumbled inside, and Dex felt it too. After all those twists and turns and half a lifetime of wandering, only at that moment did he truly realize that no one in the world could ever take Emma's place in his heart. After the wedding, he walked over to her. After 4 long years, they finally saw each other again. They talked about their old reckless days and passionate moments, and about the stability and changes in their lives now, as if those 4 years of silence had never even happened. But every time their eyes met, that buried longing from years past would quietly stir back to life. Emma told Dex that her new book was about to be published, and Dex genuinely felt happy for her. The girl who had once been worn down by reality had finally achieved her dream. But then, out of nowhere, Dex pulled out a wedding invitation. It turned out he was finally ready to leave his wild days behind and settle into a steady, ordinary life with Sylvie. Emma forced herself to stay composed and smiled, offering her congratulations. But the sadness in her eyes was impossible to hide. Not long after, Dex's daughter was born. Stepping up to take responsibility, the once famous host had to swallow his pride and take on the toughest, most thankless job at a chain restaurant run by his old classmate Carl. But fate still wasn't done with him. Just as he was trying hard to be a good husband and father and get his life back on track, an even heavier blow came out of nowhere. Sylvie ended up betraying their marriage, and the man she had been seeing behind his back was none other than Carl, the old friend who had given him that job. Unable to bear the humiliation, Dex walked away from that hollow marriage, with nothing left to hold him back. Dex decided to go to Paris and lean on Emma for support. By then, Emma was already a best-selling author known all over. But the more confident and radiant she had become, the more inferior Dex felt standing before her. He had wanted to gather every ounce of courage he had and pour out all the love and longing he had held inside for over a decade. But before he could even say a word, Emma told him she had a boyfriend. He was not only handsome and charismatic, but also a talented musician. Watching Emma walk away, so close and comfortable with another man, Dex felt like 1,000 needles were piercing straight through his chest, leaving him breathless with pain. But what he didn't know was that this very ache of loving someone who didn't love you back was something Emma had tasted countless times over the past 15 years. Only in that moment did he realize that letting go was probably the kindest thing he could do for Emma and for their love. And so, with regret weighing heavy on him, Dex silently walked away. But this time, as Emma sat in her boyfriend's concert, her heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. It suddenly hit her, if she let him leave this time, they might truly disappear from each other's lives forever. So in that instant, she forgot about being a dignified writer, forgot about all the heartbreaks she had been through, and decided to give their love one last chance. And just like that, after 15 long years of will they won't they finally found their happy ending. Soon enough, July 15th, 2004 came around. By then, the two had finally tied the knot. Their married life wasn't particularly dramatic, but it was peaceful and sweet. Dex had left his old glamorous life behind for good and was now running a small French cafe. At nearly 40 years old, they had finally become the people who fit each other perfectly. Watching Dex's daughter running around so carefree, they even started talking about having a child of their own. But as time went on, that wish never seemed to come true. Gradually, Emma started feeling anxious and insecure, and her moods became inexplicably irritable. But whenever that happened, Dex was always there to comfort her, to lift her spirits. He even decided that after work that day, they would have a romantic date, just the two of them. That afternoon, after running a little late, Emma left Dex a voicemail. Little did she know, as she was happily heading to meet him, a sudden accident would change everything. And in her last moments of consciousness, all she could think about was the man still waiting for her and the date she would never make it to. And Dex at that moment had no idea that the person he was waiting for would never show up again. After Emma's death, it felt like a part of Dex had died on that street corner too. A year passed in the blink of an eye. Dex was still trapped in the nightmare that wouldn't end. Every time he caught a glimpse of a girl who looked a little like Emma, he would instinctively go up to her, but all he got in return were strange looks, or worse, a beating for his trouble. From that point on, Dex became a different person. He stopped drinking, stopped dwelling on the past, and decided to carry Emma's love with him as he started over and truly lived. Then on July 15th, 2009, he ran into a familiar face at his cafe. It was Ian, Emma's ex-husband. They had both held Emma's hand at different points in time, and they had both lost her in their own ways. In that moment, they weren't rivals anymore. They were the only two people in the world who truly understood each other's emptiness. At the end of the film, Dex took his daughter back up that hill, the same hill where he and Emma had once run together. Lying on that familiar ground, his mind drifted back to the past, if they had never made that silly pact on graduation day, and had just held each other tight instead. If in all those moments of hesitation, he hadn't stayed silent and pulled back. Or maybe on some July 15th, he had pulled her close and finally said the words he had kept locked inside. Would things have turned out any different? But fate never answers the what-ifs, and time can't be turned back. We always think there's plenty of time ahead, forgetting that life is fragile and unpredictable. Emma spent 15 years holding on and holding back, only to finally wake Dex up to a love that came too late. Fate let them find their way to each other, but gave them only 2 short years together. Maybe some people, just by showing up in our lives, are already the greatest gift we'll ever receive. Or maybe love's best ending isn't growing old together, but waking up one morning and still feeling that having known that person was the best thing that ever happened to you.